Good evening. Welcome to this edition of Society Pages. With us this evening, we have a very special guest. We have Ms. Sheila Robinson, KSOL Religious Director. And it's nice to have a friend, a personal friend, as well as a Sunday morning friend. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you so much.
How are you this evening?
Quite well, aside from the heat outside. It's okay.
Tell me, what else, you are also Public Affairs
Assistant Director with KSOL Radio, as well as Religious Director.
And how long have you been with KSOL as Religious Director?
I would say about 8 years. It's been a total, about 8 years that I've been with the station, and for those 8 years, for the full amount, I have been Religious Director. It's just been within the past 3.5 years that I've been Assistant Public Affairs Director. So you might say that probably the Religious Director aspect of the radio business is my heart.
What does the Public Affairs Directors do?
Well, as Assistant Public Affairs Director, primarily my responsibilities are to receive the information that comes into the studio. There's just zillions and zillions of pieces of information about community affairs, about events that are going on in the Bay Area, outside of the Bay Area. And people want their events placed on the radio. They want people listening to hear about a 10K run that they're having, or a food drive, or some kind of fundraiser, or a high school class reunion, or some kind of event that is of public interest as they see it. So they send that information to the radio station, and we receive it, and we take a look at it and decide what we can use and what we cannot use. We also prepare something that we call Sunday Evening, which is 3 hours of not religious programming. See, I told you it was my heart. 3 hours of public affairs programming, and that's every Sunday evening from 8 until 11 p.m. And within that 3-hour time frame, we have 7 separate shows. Each show has a host or hostess, and we talk about a variety of subject matter, and that's another aspect of public affairs, just presenting information, presenting shows, presenting topics of interest, of information to the general public so that they can become aware of what's going on and knowledgeable and learn something.
As religious directors, do you get an opportunity to select the music that you want to play, or how is that done?
I don't know if I should answer that.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't say that. I do have an opportunity, yes, to select the music that I think is appropriate, or music that is relative to the gospel train. There is an operations manager, of course, who is responsible for everything that is heard on the air. So in a sense, I'm responsible to him to make sure that the music that I'm playing is appropriate for religious programming. So, but he's relatively lax. I won't say totally lax, because then that would seem as though he's not doing his job. But he does give me a certain freedom to make the selections. Many times I'm finding myself in a quandary, and I'm not really sure whether something would be appropriate for the gospel programming, or whether I should or should not do it. And I'll bring it to his attention and try to get an objective ear, or an objective opinion, or even a directive from him as to whether I should or should not, or can or cannot do it.
Do you ever get an opportunity to meet any of the artists that you play their music?
Oh, absolutely. That's been the greatest aspect of being religious director. It's interesting that you should ask that, because I come from New York, and in fact that's where I came from when I came to California. And many years ago, when Edwin Hawkins and the Edwin Hawkins Singers, then that's what they were called, recorded the song Oh Happy Day, which is now a classic. He rearranged the song and recorded it, and that song then just hit the charts, and it went beyond gospel programming. It began being played on the secular music programs. It did what we call in the radio business a crossover, so that it became listenable to not only religious programming and listening audiences, religious listening audiences, but to non-religious people as well. And I remember hearing that song and hearing the lead singer do her part of the song. And I used to sing the song because I enjoyed it. Never at that time did I ever think that I would get an opportunity not only to meet the lead singer of the song, but to meet Edwin Hawkins himself. And we are now friends. The lead singer, Dorothy Morrison, she lives here in the Bay Area, so does Edwin Hawkins. And I've met quite a number of them, so that's been really the best part of it. We have been able to meet each other, to become friends, and for me still to maintain the objectivity that I need when it comes to selecting their music. I can't allow our friendship to influence whether I will or will not play their music or how often I play it.
Just recently, I had the pleasure of attending a celebration in your honor. That's an annual celebration.
Yes.
This is, what year was this celebration?
The 8th year.
The 8th year,
Yeah.
as gospel directors.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny Bell Hall was the mistress of ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
as the one that I attended. So there were a number of artists there that I frequently hear you play on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday morning.
That's true. That's true.
And who sponsors that, or?
It's interesting. Each year there's a different group or individual sponsoring. There is no continuity in that regard in terms of one particular organization doing the sponsoring for the past 8 years. It started out the first year I kind of sponsored it. I simply wanted to say to the listeners, it's been a whole year since I've been on the air, and I want you to share this year with me, so let's just have a service and just kind of commemorate the 12 months. And thereafter, each year there was a different group. There was a small group and then an organization. This year, for the 8th year, 1985, an organization called C&H Enterprises, which again is local, decided that they wanted to be a part of it, and they wanted to sponsor it.
They did a fabulous job.
Oh, I can't tell you how fabulous a job they did. They went into tremendous expense. It was a 3-day celebration. It began on a Friday, the 17th of May. I can't ever forget that. Friday evening with dinner, a banquet sit-down dinner at the Hilton, the brand new one in Fremont. And it was a surprise that I simply was not expecting.
I met her.
Chester Hutchinson, who was H of C&H Enterprises, and Larry Childress, those are the two co-partners. But Chester had said to me, well, we've got a special surprise for you. And I tried to pick his brain and tried to elicit from him what this surprise was. And I thought that I was cunning enough to do it. I wasn't. The night of the banquet, we were sitting there just after we had prayer, and we were about to go into the main dinner. And he came to the stage and just kind of mentioned what this was all about and mentioned that I was in the audience. Then he had me come to the stage, and I came up. And then he asked if there were any other RNs in the audience, because I happened to be a registered nurse. And 2 women raised their hands, and he said, would you come forward, please? And I want one of you to stand on either side of her. And I couldn't imagine what this was all about. And I was looking out into the audience at his wife. I thought maybe I could get a clue from her. And I was looking at her with this look on my face and wondering what was going on. And she played the role to the hilt. She should win an Academy. She looked at the ceiling, and she was doing all sorts of gestures as though she had no idea what was going on. And he said, well, Sheila has no idea what the surprise is, but we've got a very special surprise for her, something that we are sure she's going to love. And at this time, I'm going to go out and get the surprise. And I started thinking, what is this, a VCR? What did he buy? What did they do? Well, he jumped off the stage and went running out of the banquet hall, and he came back in with my mother. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. They flew her out here from Florida. And of course, I started crying, and I almost jumped off the stage, but I realized I couldn't do that. I went down the stairs, and we ran and met each other, but that was their surprise, and she remained with me for the entire 3-day weekend. And they had made arrangements so that she could have a room at the hotel that evening, and she and I spent the evening together, and we just talked, and we were up half the night and early the next morning so that we could get home and prepare for the remainder of the weekend. So it was quite a weekend for me, and when you saw me, it was on Sunday, and it was at Walter Hawkins Church in Oakland, Love Center Church. And so it was just a marvelous anniversary.
I had the pleasure of meeting her. She's a beautiful lady.
Thank
How
you.
did she react to all this?
She was very stunned and very, very pleasantly surprised, obviously. You know how mothers are when it comes to their children, and especially when you become aware that people like or love your children. That makes you feel so much better. So she was just very impressed with the warmth that she saw and felt from not only C&H, but from so many of the people that were involved in the total programming, and to such an extent that 2 weekends after that, I flew out for a quick weekend. I think I talked to you about this, to New Jersey to a wedding, a friend's wedding, a relative's wedding. And flew back in, of course, just in time to get on the air Sunday morning, but I was a few minutes late, something like 15 or 20 minutes late, because I flew into San Francisco and left San Francisco and drove directly to the studio, so I was a little bit late. And I was talking to my mother about this on the phone, and I said, well, I was a few minutes late, and I wasn't sure if I should announce to the audience why I was late. But then I said, oh, they don't care why I was late. They just want to hear the program. They want to hear the music. And she said, yeah, that's true. Then she says, no, wait a minute, that's not true. They do care. So she reacted very positively to the entire weekend, and she felt very good about the way I'd been received and the way things were happening. Of course, it was just an opportunity for her to see me and my brother and my 2 sons, and she just enjoyed herself.
And your sons, do they have difficulty with Mom being a public personality?
They could care less. As long as I have dinner ready, that's all they're concerned about. That is their primary concern. Yes, if dinner is ready and everything in the home is going along smoothly, that's all they are concerned about.
You said you were an RN before becoming a radio broadcaster. What got you into it, out of the RN into the broadcasting?
Oh, that's another interesting story. My life is just one series of interesting stories. I arrived in California 8 years ago, and I was working as an RN at that time. I'm still an RN. I simply don't practice. I maintain my licenses so that I can be current. I was, my sons were attending the Nairobi school, and
is that in Palo Alto?
Yes, in Palo Alto. And at that time, 8 years ago, it had been a practice of the school to have a fundraising radiothon at KSOL Radio. And annually, they would have this fundraiser, and someone from the school would come to the station and would solicit funds and make their appeal, and people would make pledges and money would come in that way for the school. Well, this one particular year, I think it was 76. The radiothon was all set to go, but the people that they had scheduled were unable to attend to make the solicitation, and they asked me to go. And that was my first introduction to KSOL.
And your first introduction to the media business? Or?
Well, no, I had been a guest on a radio station at another time in New Jersey talking about some kind of civic issue, whether or not parking should be diagonal or horizontal or something to that nature. But you might as well say it was my first, because I was really not that involved or engrossed or really interested either in media. So that was my first introduction. It was at that time that I met Herman Henry, who was then the station manager, and it was on a Sunday morning. It was on Gospel Train. There was another lady doing it by the name of Tina Freeman. She was the host at that time. And she welcomed me onto the religious programming, and I did my little solicitation and thanked the audience in advance for whatever they were going to contribute, and that was it.
I heard the story that Herman told about the first time he let you go without him in the booth with him.
Yes.
And he says, "You're on."
That was tragic. That was tragic.
And you had to go from there, and it's been ever since.
Yes, that's true. He did that. He absolutely did that, and it scared me half to death, because I felt that I wasn't ready. But since he was doing the teaching, he felt that I was ready, and he was the one in authority, so I had to be ready.
Sheila, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
You're William Shatner.
Yeah.
You were Captain Kirk, and now you're T.J. Hooker.
Yeah, that's true, I was.
William, do you believe in telepathy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I want you to think of the name of your third-grade teacher.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to vibe in on your head.
All right.
And guess his or
All
her
right,
name, whatever.
that'll be fun.
Okay, now you concentrate.
Okay.
Third-grade teacher. I'll count to 3.
I got it.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3. I'm not getting it. You're thinking about the United Way. Yeah, you're thinking, how can my donation make a difference? Bill, let me tell you
How
that
did you know that?
for just $1.75 a week, that'll provide a week of daycare for
How did you know it?
economically disadvantaged children.
How did you know I was thinking that?
And just $4 a week will provide 3 months of meals for an elderly shut-in.
But that's what I was thinking.
What do you give the United Way?
Do I give to the United Way? Every time I can.
Well, thanks to you, it works for all of us, the United Way.
Good.
What was your third-grade teacher's name?
I can't remember.
Welcome back to the second half of Society Pages with our guest, Sheila Robinson. Sheila, you were just telling us the interesting way that you got into broadcasting. Could you go ahead and tell us?
Well, after I made that initial appearance, or I guess I could call it an appearance, on KSOL, I guess it was about 3 or 4 months after that, after I had made the solicitation for the Nairobi school, I became aware that Tina Freeman was no longer with the studio, and that position was vacant. And I thought at that time that Herman Henry would fulfill that spot and just do the entire 6 hours, because then it was broken up into 2 3-hour segments from 6 to 9, then from 9 to 12 noon. And when I had been at the studio several months prior, I had noticed that the telephones were constantly ringing, and you needed one person just to handle the phones. So I called Herman and told him that I would be available to simply come up and answer the phones if he needed someone. And he said, okay. And the next day he called me and said, no, that's not okay. I don't want you to answer the phones. I want you to do the show. Well, I panicked again, and I told him that I couldn't. And he said, yes, you can. And I said, no, I can't. And this just went on and on and on. I gave him 10,000 excuses, and for every excuse that I gave, he had a solution. And that's kind of how it started. He said, I want you to be here this coming Sunday, and I want you to sit at the microphone over here that's reserved for the guests, and I will sit over here at the microphone, the one that is reserved for me, the one that's handling the board. And that's exactly what he did. And I arrived, my stomach was in knots, and I was scared to death because I had not done this before, certainly not act as a host. I had been a guest. And it's easy to be interviewed. If someone is asking you questions, you simply answer. Mm-hmm. But to have to sit for 3 hours and talk about songs and music and relevant conversation, I just didn't think I could do that for 3 hours.
I suppose it came natural because of the religious aspect of it and your background there.
That's what Herman felt. He felt that because of my knowledge of religious music and just my religious background, my religion itself, that I would be able to handle that. That, to me, simply didn't make that much sense, because I thought, well, I need more than that. I'm going to have to sit here and talk, and I was very shy. No one believes that, but I was. And the thought of having to sit there for 3 hours and make conversation just scared me half to death. But he felt that I could do it, and he apparently was right. Thank God. I shouldn't sit here and take the credit for it. The Lord blessed me to be able to do that, and it's been 8 years now since that time.
Certainly is a blessing for us to hear it every Sunday morning. However, it's not on long enough.
Okay. I will be sure and tell the general manager that you said that. Okay.
It's not on long enough. You also have a business of your own. It's called, I think, Unique Specialties?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about Unique Specialties?
Yes. I think, well, I'm excited about it. It is. It's my own business, and it's a very new business, a very young business. And I started it because I saw a need for several of the services that I provide in Unique Specialties. And I came about the title of, or the name of the company, Unique Specialties, because prior to beginning the business, I had conducted seminars on public speaking and presenting oneself publicly, etc. And in my discussions and in my classes, I would try and get across to everyone in the class that each of them was a unique individual, that no one is identical. Even if you are a member of a set of twins or triplets, or whatever the case might be, you may look identical, but no individual is identical to someone else, and that every person is unique. And I felt that certainly that was an appropriate name for my company, because the company was going to provide services that were special, areas
for
of
instance,
specialty.
the voice card.
Yes. The voice card is, I think, unique because it goes just a little bit further than a regular card. If you have a special occasion, you would go out and buy a card that would have some sentiments that were appropriate for the occasion. The voice card is a little different. It comes boxed and ready for mailing or ready for presenting, just as is, with a little ribbon around it and in a strong little box. And you open it up, and there is a card inside. On the outside of the card, there's the sentiments for the occasion: happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, whatever the occasion might be. Then you open it up, and on the inside of the inner flap, you can write some little special something. Then you go further, and you open it up, and there's a standard-sized cassette with a voiced message with music on it. And it has a message that is appropriate for the individual that you're giving.
Pre-recorded message, is that?
Yes, it's a pre-recorded message on a cassette. And it's a very moving kind of thing, because as a mother, if you received a voice card from your son and this voice would come on saying, "Mom, I think that you're the greatest mother in the world. You've been with me through thick and thin," this kind of thing. Your eyes start getting full. Yes. You know, and you become very full, and you just become very emotional about the whole thing. And this has been the response to the voice cards, because you hear a literal voice, and it's so much more involved than simply reading words on a card. And you can play it over and over again for your own satisfaction and enjoyment. So that's something that I've created.
You're going to go down the list of all these exciting things that you're doing.
That's great.
Because they're so exciting.
Okay.
Shutter Speed.
Shutter Speed is the name. As you have noticed already, Unique Specialties provides many different kinds of services. And, of course, each service has its own title. And I thought that would be unique to have each little service.
One that really is exciting to me. I think this is a future one, but it's Christicized.
Oh, Christicized is not future. That's very current and active. Absolutely. That was one of the beginnings.
The title is, tell us what Christicized is.
Christicized is nothing more than Christian exercise. And someone asked me, well, do Christians exercise any differently than anyone else? And of course the answer to that is no. The difference is that Christians like to exercise in an atmosphere that is non-secular. They may not want to exercise to beat it or to something else with secular music. So we exercise to gospel music, and we talk about scriptures before we go into our exercise program, and we relate presenting our bodies unto God, a living sacrifice. And we talk about presenting our bodies in a wholesome state, a healthy state, a non-obese state. You know, so these are the kinds of things that we talk about in Christicise, and it's marvelous fellowship. We sing as we exercise, and in one particular church, we were called the Christicise Choir because we were singing and praising God as we were exercising. And another unique thing about Christicise is that Christicise will come to your particular location, your church hall or your social hall. So that's another thing that makes it very exciting and special.
That sounds very special. Yeah. It sounds like something that a lot of us could use, because I think it gets you in a little bit more in touch with
yourself.
With yourself, as opposed to, like you said, the Michael Jackson type. It's your health.
It's your health. That's a very special kind of category. What we do is conduct lectures on a variety of subject matter, from hypertension, obesity, whatever. And I also instruct. I'm a certified instructor by the American Red Cross to teach CPR. So I can also hold a CPR class and certify those students that pass the course. I emphasize pass the course in CPR so that they can become certified in doing CPR. So those are some of the things that we do.
Experiences.
Experiences is not always a very pleasant part of Unique Specialties. Many times you'll run into an individual who may be suffering from a terminal illness, such as cancer or kidney failure or whatever. And in most instances, those individuals and the family members of the individual feel that they're alone. They feel isolated. They feel separated from the rest of the society. They feel left alone, as though God has totally abandoned them, as though everyone has abandoned them. We have people who are living through these kinds of experiences, who are walking around day by day with terminal illnesses and who are dealing with it. These people go out and conduct seminars and talk to audiences, large or small, however, whatever the size may be. Talk to them about
So they will come to us.
Yes, and talk about experiences.
Sheila, we're going to pause for a moment and have our community calendar, and we'll be right back. We have with us Judy Wilson.
Hi.
Tell us about what's happening in our area this week.
Okay, the Northern California chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop will hold its first annual Music Appreciation Awards banquet honoring outstanding musicians in our area on July 20th at the Red Lion Inn. For information, contact James Owen at 408-274-2556. Also, the Evergreen Youth Adult Jazz Society will present video jazz at the Evergreen Public Library on July 20th and 27th, August 3rd and 10th. For information, call 248-274-8142. And we have the Urban League will hold its general meeting in the San Jose City Hall building, room 204 at 6:30 p.m. For information, call 408-288-7509. Guests are invited. And the Dorn Studios is looking for female models ages 3 through 7 and ages 16 through 26. For information, phone 408-274-8246. This is our society calendar for this week.
Thank you, Judy. Now, we have some, one that also kind of is intriguing to me. It's called Family Circle.
The Family Circle deals with family problems, marriage counseling, child counseling, individual, group therapy, all kinds of things. And we have certified, trained, licensed therapists who handle those areas. Of course, I don't provide all of the services in unique specialties, but those areas that I'm not equipped to handle, I do have people that are licensed and trained in that particular area. So we do have therapists that are able to provide therapy if, in fact, a family or individual or group needs it.
And you have some future aspects of unique specialties. Could you tell us quickly what those are?
Yes, two of the future services are now current. From printing till now. One of the future services was, it's called HELP, and it simply means security service. If you were having a large event and you wanted security personnel, armed or unarmed, uniformed or plainclothes, we can provide, unique specialties can provide that for you. So that is now a current service. A second service is notary. At that time we were going to have notary services available, and of course that is now available now.
What is notary services? A lot of people don't know what that is.
I'm a notary public, so I'm able to notarize important papers and do those kinds of services that a notary can do.
Okay. And Gospel Hotline.
Gospel Hotline is, I guess, my favorite of all of those. Gospel Hotline is simply what it says. It's a hotline into what's going on in the Bay Area. You can call a number, pick up your phone any time of the day, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, just before you're ready to go out and you don't know where to go, or you would like to change your mind and go someplace else. You pick up the phone and dial a number. And
what number would they dial?
If they're living in this area, they would dial, they wouldn't need the 408. It's 732-1601. And if they're living in the 415 area code, it's 839-9447.
All right, Sheila, it's been a pleasure having you with us. And I want you to come back and tell us some more about all these unique things that you're doing with unique specialties.
Okay.
We will see you again next week on Society Pages. Thank you, Sheila, for being with us.
Thank you.